The protesting farmers have taken a maximalist position and have refused to withdraw their protests unless the 3 laws are repealed. Is a middle ground possible? Joining me now is our big newsmaker, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman. Ma'am, thank you so much for your time. Farmers are camping.
Good evening, Maria.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your time. Farmers are camping in and around Delhi borders for almost 3 weeks, and the government has already held many rounds of talks with them. The Home Minister also intervened last week. Why has there been no headway in breaking the logjam?
That's a good question to start with, but negotiations are a time-consuming process. If there are issues which have to be clarified, it does take time. So I'm not so concerned about time-consuming exercise. But what worries me at this stage is those protesting farmers are probably not specifying the issues on which they want the negotiations. After all, the concerned minister, Agriculture Minister Tomar ji and Piyush Goyal ji are both sitting and saying we are quite okay with talking about every aspect of the law, the 3 laws which have now become the law of the land. So I think the process is getting a bit stretched because specific concerns are not being voiced. There's a lot of talking from the side of those who are representing the farmers who are still not very specific on what is it that they are concerned about.
Okay, ma'am.
And therefore it's going to...
Yes.
Yeah.
Because despite the government's assurance that MSP won't be touched among all other concessions, the farmers are adamant on their single point demand that these laws must be repealed because they are saying that ye kala kanoon hai. Is rollback an option?
But Maria, where is MSP linked to this whole debate? The 3 laws have nothing to do with MSP. First, let that be clear. MSP continues, in fact, continues better with Prime Minister Modi. 2014 till 19 and 19 till now, we've had record procurement at good prices, and the quantum procured is also like never before. So linking MSP to this debate is absolutely unrelated, although it relates to the farmers as a concern. As regards the law, I'd like to say, what about the law in which any of the political opposition parties can stand up and say, no, this is not what we stood for. They all stood for these very things. And today, now, seeing a political opportunity to join a group of farmers who are seeking clarification is just sheer optimism from the side of the opposition parties.
Well, we'll be talking about politics in just a bit, ma'am, but because, farmers are saying that MSP for crops be made an entitlement, not mere a policy announcement. How far is the government willing to go to accommodate the farmers' demands?
Well, I think it was made very clear that the MSP is not part of the farm laws. These are just very clearly issues which are being brought about in this context. When the data shows clearly MSP is out of the farm laws and it continues like before, where are they linked? So if this protest is against farm laws, where is the MSP in it?
Ma'am, one thought is that why are the farmers of only Punjab protesting? While Punjab is biggest producer of wheat, what about farmers of rest of India? Because farmers in many states, and we have seen those success stories, have welcomed the new laws. Can one set of people force the government to withdraw a national law even if it is for the larger good?
Well, first of all, even if it is for the larger good, itself is addressed What is for the larger good? The farming laws are for the larger good. And if there are some farmers who have doubts about it, we can speak about it. So rolling back of the farm law as a demand cannot be on the grounds of larger good. Larger good rests in the fact that farmers all over the country are coming out with clear anecdotal and experiential examples of how they stand to benefit. Didn't you come to know of that particular case of a Maharashtra farmer who, not getting paid in time, approached the district collector in Madhya Pradesh from where the trader was, who got paid because of the district collector ensured that the payment was done in time? So repealing of the laws for the larger good just doesn't hold water.
What is the...
But if they are asking about some aspects, yeah.
Yes, please, go ahead, ma'am.
But if they are asking about some aspects of the laws in which they are confused or in which they are not sure, the ministers are ever ready to answer those clarifications. Now, from the press meets of the ministers who have been engaged in this negotiation, whether it is Narendra Singh Tomarji or Piyushji, it's very clear that the representatives who are attending the negotiations on behalf of the farmers are not putting their finger on those specific issues which are causing concern for them. Contract farming exists in Punjab, exists in Maharashtra, where Congress party is in the ruling, and they have never thought of repealing it. Whereas when it is part of a central law, there is so much of confusion about it. It is already existing in Punjab and in Haryana and in Maharashtra and in Gujarat and in Karnataka. So contract farming is not one thing for somebody and one other thing for the central law.
Yes, and what is the possible solution?
And as regards the prices?
To current stalemate, ma'am, because some experts are saying let Punjab decide its own destiny, leave it to the state government entirely. Is that possible? It has also been proposed that the government should completely withdraw free power and other subsidies and in turn put more money directly in poorest farmers' accounts.
See, these are solutions which people can come up with. These are solutions which people can come up with because they're not at the negotiating table. And even with Prime Minister Modi and the government of the day in Delhi ready to sit and talk, talking is not happening, whereas protests are continuing even as talking is happening, which itself in principle, if you look at it, defies the principle of goodwill, where if you're starting to talk, please engage in the talk. And if you think that the government is not responding, and in this case responding also in written, the government is on its own given a written reply. So that's where I think the minister's statement, Piyush Goyalji's statement, that probably this whole negotiation has been hijacked. The farmers' protest, which is on questions of they not being clear, probably has gotten hijacked by such elements for whom protest in India is now becoming an exercise to recover some of their lost ground, bring the brotherhood from all over the world, and also have all their old boys associations stand up and speak from their respected think tanks centers, and also those who have a column space available for publishing in global newspapers to publish articles against this government. Sum and substance of what I want to say here, Maria, it looks as if these are all windows of opportunity for those disgruntled elements which are hijacking every protest to destabilize this government.
Ma'am, since you're talking about this, the protesters have been linked to Khalistanis, they have been called ultra-leftists and Maoists. These protests have been dubbed as also those by rich farmers and middlemen or commission agents. Would you agree that these accusations have further vitiated the atmosphere and it is in fact leading to perhaps mistrust?
Maybe, because that can be one of those arguments which the farmers can say, oh no, look, this is what we are being dubbed as, and so on. we have not stopped talking with them. They are welcome to come and sit and talk as farmers. But if you, as media, for instance, are able to go to the ground and see the kind of demands which are getting latched on to this protest, and also the letters which have gone to the negotiating ministers, now adding on issues which have nothing to do with agriculture or the farm laws. You know, release so-and-so who's being held for some other, Naxal-related crimes. Release so-and-so who has been working on some other issue which has nothing to do with the farm-related issues, but Article 370. Who is doing all this? I call upon the farmers who want to engage with the government to distance themselves from these elements and say, we have nothing to do with them, we are here as farmers, we want to talk with our elected government. I would honestly request farmers to please distance themselves from those who are latching on to every protest in this country only for them to take out their frustration that they are not able to, win a political argument against this government because this government is doing everything transparently. Now, if each of them are, shopping from one to another protest because they have something personal, visceral against the Prime Minister, I think this is the time that the farmers who are genuinely coming from all parts of Punjab and Haryana and so on, it is time for them to distance themselves from these elements.
You know, ma'am, the Prime Minister has said reforms will give farmers new markets, access to technology, help bring investments in agriculture. A majority of agriculture economists agree that farm bills were long overdue for agricultural reforms. Despite its best intentions, would it be fair to say that the government failed in communicating the message to the farmers and the finer points were lost in translation?
Well, there's always a reason that we can look at for any developing situation. The government, not just this government, for last 20 years, governments of different colors and hues have had this discussed, have had this, looked in through various committees. Various committees have gone through several iterations, and after that, it had come to the parliament. In Lok Sabha, it was elaborately discussed, and the minister gave point-on-point answer for every question of the opposition. And the Agriculture Ministry has come out with the data to show how many stakeholder consultations had happened, how many farmers were engaged in this conversation, and if all that happened, post which the Punjab government also chose to say, right, we are going ahead with our own laws. We have not treaded, we as Government of India have not treaded onto the state list at all. These farm laws are invoking that which is in the central list. And that central list pertains to trading in agricultural commodities, which is entirely center's business, and trading happening between states. So interstate trading of farming goods, farm goods, are very much within the realm of the central list. And it is only that we've done. Your APMC, which comes from the State Act, is intact.
Right.
And from the center, the MSP is intact. Where is any state's domain being encroached by the center?
You know, the government did put out some data on the number of training and webinars that were held with the farmers from June to November. If the process was so consultative, why did it come via the ordinance route during pandemic?
During the pandemic, we were very clear that this has gone through its process, and we should, during the pandemic itself, with the kind of rural resurgence we saw, with the kind of contribution that farmers were making to the economy despite the corona, if reforms for benefiting them is not happening because it's pandemic, how unfair is that? We were trying to reform the labor laws. That also happened during the pandemic. We came up with 1 lakh crore for agricultural infrastructure. Why won't you want to ask me as to why I'm giving 1 lakh crore during the pandemic for agri-infrastructure? It is like that. Every step will have to be taken in good succession so that those who desperately have waited now for more than 60 years for a reform in agriculture. Maria,
yes,
we are often pointed out, just let me say this to you.
Yes.
We are often told, oh, Prime Minister Modi is nowhere near 1991 reform agenda. Look what Dr. Manmohan Singh under the leadership of Narasimha Rao did. That was reform. After that, nothing has happened. Forgetting that Dr. Manmohan Singh, after that, literally after 20 years, after 15 years, became the Prime Minister again, and he couldn't do this. He couldn't do it in 91, he couldn't do it in between 2004 and 14. Although it was in their manifesto of 2019. And we do it now. Although then the agriculture minister during 2004 to 14,
yes,
Sharad Pawarji had written letters saying we should privatize, give opportunity for the farmers. Now, a prime minister who couldn't do it despite his achievements of 1991, who couldn't do it in his 10 years, and people do point out to Modi saying, oh no, you've not achieved much, when he does the same reform to which all of them subscribe till today. What does it mean? Does it not highlight their hypocrisy? Does that not highlight the fact that they are seeing a political opportunity to destabilize an elected government?
So
That's exactly what is happening.
So are you saying that this is the 1991 moment for Indian agricultural reforms?
No, there are several that Modi has done between 14 and 19. Several. GST, IBC, labor codes, systemic reforms in many of those sectors which have got opened up, as a result of which you're getting FDI. Banking sector, regulatory bodies, each one of them is a substantial systemic reform which is being carried out. Bringing some 1,000 odd, 1,500 odd archaic laws out of the box and saying no longer will these be useful because they were becoming instruments of discretion and therefore corruption was breeding. We removed them all. So Modi's list of reform continues.
Okay. I'm talking about a specific point in the farm laws, ma'am, and much of the opposition is just one of the 3 new laws. In this is the most contentious seems to be about the Farmers Produce Trade and Commerce Promotion and Facilitation Act, or the FPTC Act. It is the FPTC Act and its provisions that are seen as weakening the APMC mandis. It permits sale and purchase of farm produce outside the premises of APMC mandis. Will there be a rethink on this?
Maria, what is the wrong about it? If the farmer is given a choice to sell in the mandi or outside, and if MSP continues, the comfort of MSP continues, he chooses to sell where he wants to. And I'm a bit worried about this very patronizing attitude of, people saying, oh no, what if outside the mandi, price is lesser than the MSP? The farmer will be forced to sell. I'm sorry, look at the Indian farmer. In spite of COVID, he didn't wait for any of the opposition parties to support or stand by him or anything. He is going on doing his work. And he's deciding on his crop. He is producing. You think he won't be smart enough to know whether he wants to sell in the mandi or outside? A Congress party and others in the opposition wanted the APMC to be disbanded.
Yes.
We have not disbanded it. And in spite of that, the argument is, what if they sell outside of the mandi? Hurray, you were going to disband the mandi itself. What are you asking about the mandi and outside the mandi now? Your written statements in your manifesto clearly say we want to disband the APMC. Today, we've not disbanded it. But you're saying, oh my God, the farmer will go outside of the mandi and sell? If it makes economic sense for the farmer to go outside and sell it, so be it. He should be having the choice.
Okay.
Why are we speaking for him?
Okay, ma'am, what would be the fiscal cost if MSP is made mandatory? Because once this is made mandatory, many other states would start questioning the procurement policy, which favors a handful of states.
When we say mandatory, Maria, let us understand one thing. If there has been one crop season within a year, that is 12 months, there are two in a year. If the MSP has not been provided in even one crop season, then there's a reason to doubt that MSP may not continue, and therefore there's this fear that you might altogether let it go and you want to hardwire it. But I'm telling you that even now, the maximum procurements are happening even as we speak. So, I can't understand. And also, look at what the Prime Minister has done. As soon as he came to power, he said, look, I want to double the farmers' income by 2022. He's putting money into their accounts, direct benefit transfer of 6,000 rupees. Fertilizer subsidy is given, and not one state saw in the last 6 years a day's shortage of fertilizer supply. I have this time, during the Atmanirbhar package, given 65,000 crores for fertilizer for this year. And in the 6 years, we've not had a shortage of fertilizer, subsidized that is. And after that, you also get interest subvention given to the farmer in the loans that he takes for the crops. KCC card is given to them. I do not want to do this as an exercise to say so much is being spent on the farmer. He deserves the money, he will be given the money. And it is not Modi's government which will grudge giving it to the farmer. But I want to speak of those parties which are now joining hands to say, oh yes, make MSP mandatory. In their time, the procurement was even 1/10 of what we were procuring now. And look at their gumption to say, oh my God, farmer, give them MSP. You didn't even procure of the 23 which is listed there. You stopped always after you procured some amount of wheat and paddy. You didn't think of cultivating oilseed growers. You didn't think of coarse grains. And today you're saying, oh my God, we need to have MSP guaranteed. I'm sorry, if you take the actual figures of farmer and farmer welfare between 2004 and 14, I do not want to say this at all as a point of discussion.
Okay.
I want to keep my hands in the, almost khar jod karke. I want, with vinamrata, I want to say, what a bitter thing to say, and it breaks my heart. Between 2004 and 14, Maria, the number of suicides of farmers who could not bear the burden. At that time, none of them did anything concrete, not even 10% of what Prime Minister Modi has done.
Yes.
Put money into their account, ensure fertilizer, give raw material, open up for marketing, open up for them to... Look at the variety of things which are all coming for the farmer. They're just not able to digest the fact that there is a comprehensive farmer welfare approach of this government.
Last question to you, ma'am. Today, since you are clearly saying that these were legislations that were mooted by the previous government, the NCP is opposing, and the agriculture minister then was Sharad Pawar, batting for these legislations. What will be your message to the farmers even as they continue their protests? Your final word.
My final request would be that the farmers should please first detach themselves from those who are making their, political resurgence on their shoulders. Remove them from your protests. Be clear on the specific concerns you have. You're welcome to come and meet the ministers and speak. The ministers are ready to talk to you on every one of the points. Government is willing to hear you. But these kind of temptations which the opposition are trying to put to them is not going to help their cause. Concrete evidences before the farmers, the hard-working farmers of this country, that during their time, not a single thing was in the favor of farmers. Even the so-called 2009, 8-9 waiver, loan waiver of the farmers was not even fully given to all of them. I have to remind you that even as latest as Madhya Pradesh's Sri Kamal Nath ji's government could not even give the farmers loan waivers. Trust them, please. Don't trust them at all. Trust them not. Engage with this government. Be clear on what are the kind of things you have in your mind. And issues which have nothing to do with the farm laws should not be idly brought here. This is not the platform for it.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Nirmala Sitharaman. Always a pleasure to speak to you. Thank you for this interview.
Thank you, Maria, for giving me this opportunity.